Patrick Baldwin Jr. came out of high school as a 5-star recruit and the 8th-ranked player nationally. He had offers from at least 20 schools, including blue bloods like Duke and North Carolina, but Baldwin chose to stay home and play for his dad at UW-Milwaukee. What seemed like it could be a dream season for the father-son duo quickly turned into a nightmare. Baldwin Jr. battled injuries and appeared in only 11 games. He also generally struggled in games he did play in and saw his draft stock plummet from potential lottery pick to possibly a late first-round pick. Baldwin Sr. was fired at the end of a 10-22 season, ending a 5-year run with the Panthers. Overall, nothing really went right for Baldwin Jr. at Milwaukee, but his pedigree and potential will likely lead to a team taking a chance on him late in the first round. The first strength for Baldwin is his passing. Baldwin is listed at just over 6'10" and definitely profiles as a forward, but he is actually a surprisingly good passer. Baldwin makes quick decisions with the ball in the flow of the offense and does a good job finding open teammates that others wouldn't be able to see. Being his height is certainly helpful in that he can see over the defense, but this doesn't always equate to success for big guys as playmakers. Baldwin seems to be unselfish as a passer and also skilled enough to make tough passes. He probably won't ever be the type of guy you can run your offense through from a playmaking perspective, but he can handle the ball fairly well and reads the floor at a high level for his age. He could be a useful secondary playmaker at his best, and at worst is a guy that you can trust to make the right decisions and keep the offense moving. Another strength for Baldwin is physically he has some great tools to work with. Baldwin measured in at the NBA Draft Combine at 6'10" 1/4", 231 pounds, with a 7-foot 1.75 inch wingspan. These measurements are ideal for how Baldwin wants to play basketball in some respects. Baldwin isn't a super athlete, so he can struggle a bit to create separation at times. But when you're a 6'10" forward, it's pretty hard for anybody to be able to contest your jump shot. Baldwin showed in college that he has the ability and confidence to shoot over just about anyone. Sometimes his confidence was to his detriment, but it's there all the same. Baldwin's size is also helpful for him in drawing fouls around the basket and getting easy chances at the free throw line. Ultimately, Baldwin will have to prove that he can consistently make those shots, but if a team believes that he has it in him, he could be a guy that is difficult to defend on the offensive end of the floor. One weakness for Baldwin is that he is not a great athlete. Watching Baldwin play for Milwaukee, just about anybody would notice that Baldwin is not especially quick, fast, or a good vertical leaper. His testing at the Combine confirmed what our eyes saw on the court. He posted a 26.5-inch max vertical leap, lowest at the 2022 NBA Combine and 4th lowest since 2011. He was also bottom 5 at the Combine in lane agility and the 3/4 court sprint. All this is to say, Baldwin is not a good athlete by NBA standards. This shows up on the court in that he can have difficulty creating space to get his shot off on offense or get to the basket despite good size and a solid handle. It also shows up on defense anytime he's forced out on the perimeter. He just can't stay in front of people. To be successful in the NBA, Baldwin will need to use his savvy and jump shot because his athleticism isn't going to get him very far. Another weakness for Baldwin is defense. I touched on this a bit in talking about his athleticism, but Baldwin is not a strong defender. He's just not quick enough to hang with guys out on the perimeter. This leads to blow-bys as well as fouls by Baldwin as he struggles to stay in front. Lack of quickness as a big guy isn't always a death sentence as a defender. We see guys like Al Horford and Brook Lopez that are able to be very good defenders thanks to their intelligence and timing on the defensive end. But Baldwin has not figured that out yet either. He isn't a guy that doesn't try on defense, but he just looks lost out there sometimes. I think the best case scenario for Baldwin is he is able to reinvent himself as a stretch 5 that plays in drop coverage on defense, but he has a long way to go before he will be able to do that. One last weakness for Baldwin is shooting touch. The reason Baldwin was such a highly touted prospect coming out of high school is he was at least 6'9" and had great touch on his jump shot. But in college, his touch seemed to have abandoned him for all but one game. Baldwin hit the front rim on a lot of his shots and put up a ton of air balls. He ended up shooting just 27% from 3 on the season, and that's including a game in which he went 6 for 6. Outside of that game, he shot just 19% from beyond the arc. Baldwin overall has decent looking shot form, and as mentioned before, has the ability to get his jumper off at almost any time. He did suffer an ankle injury that cost him his senior year in high school, and re-aggravated that injury in college, so it's possible that was messing with his shot. But when you shoot as poorly as Baldwin did last season, you have to prove to people that you can shoot rather than expecting them to believe that you can. This first clip gives us a look at how Baldwin can use his physical tools to be successful on offense. The play starts with Baldwin handling the ball out near half court. He gets a screen from a teammate and sees a hedge initially. Baldwin navigates his way around it as a second defender drops away. Baldwin then dribbles into the elbow, uses his size to create some space, and shoot over the smaller defender. At his best, Baldwin can be a difficult matchup with his size and skill set. If he can rediscover his shooting touch in the NBA, he could be a dangerous offensive player. This next clip shows how Baldwin can struggle on the defensive end of the floor. The play starts with Baldwin defending out on the wing. The offensive player simply puts his head down and blows right past Baldwin going left. As a last-ditch effort, Baldwin reaches in for the ball, but ends up just creating an and one for the offense. Baldwin didn't have the quickness to hang with offensive players out on the perimeter in the Horizon League, and I don't think it's going to be any easier for him in the NBA. This final clip displays an example of Baldwin's poor shooting touch. The play is fairly simple. Baldwin sets a screen and flares out to the wing. Recognizing that the defender isn't going to have much hope to defend his shot, he puts it up. But Baldwin misses terribly and hits the backboard on the other side of the rim. Even the best shooters have really bad misses sometimes, but Baldwin had more than a handful of misses like this in his time at Milwaukee. Patrick Baldwin Jr. went from likely lottery pick to a guy that might not even get drafted in the first round. I think the best way to frame it from Baldwin's perspective is by saying that everything that could have possibly gone wrong last season went wrong. He wasn't healthy, the team was lousy, his father got fired, and he was never able to establish a rhythm. Baldwin could easily look at his situation and say, I was a top prospect for a reason, I know I have the ability in me when things aren't falling apart all around me. This will likely be what the team that ends up drafting Baldwin will think as well. You have a guy with a great pedigree that just went through a season plus from hell. You get him in the building and you put him in a good situation where he's healthy, maybe that sweet shooting big man comes back out. The team that takes Baldwin will basically have to acknowledge that they're taking a flyer on a guy that maybe just isn't what people thought he was. I think at his best, Baldwin could be a stretch 5 that gives you some size and scoring punch off the bench. But if Baldwin isn't able to find his shooting touch again, I don't feel like he will ever be able to find much of a foothold in the NBA. My NBA comp for Patrick Baldwin Jr. is Nikola Vucevic. Vucevic is a center that can shoot it really well and get you some buckets around the basket with his size. But he also isn't a particularly good athlete or strong as a defender. Baldwin would have to rediscover his shooting touch to reach anywhere close to Vucevic's level, but I think that would be his ceiling as a player.